Okay, next up we have a discussion going on, and during the discussion you can actually ask questions via the Q&A app Slido. It's very easy to use, just follow the steps on the screen. When it comes to AI, what companies say and what they do are two different things. Many claim they're ready to embrace it, but few take the steps needed to transform themselves accordingly. Our next panel is here to discuss the most exciting developments facing AI in the next 12 months to come. In conversation with moderator Shona Ghosh, please welcome to the stage your panelist Jean-François Gagné of Element AI, and from the influencers there's Sarah-Jayne Gratton, and from Cabbage, Frohwein.
Should I go?
You got the little chair.
Comfy couch.
Yeah, it is.
Hello. Gosh, there's loads of you. Welcome to the Binate stage, and thank you for joining us. This is a panel about AI, so if you want to run away and get lunch now, we'll forgive you. But for those of you who are going to stay and join us, first I want to get the panel to introduce themselves, get them to talk about their companies and how AI relates to what they do. So, Rob from Cabbage, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Cabbage does and where AI plays a role? Keep it very brief.
Okay, Rob Frohwein, co-founder and CEO of Cabbage. We provide working capital directly under our brand to small businesses in the US, so far about $6 billion, 265,000 businesses. We also license our technology to banks here in Europe, ING and Santander, specifically, and we're live in Spain, UK, Italy, and France. And AI has a huge opportunity within our company. We're automated, fully automated for customers. We are right now exploring how we introduce AI to allow products to be created on the fly for specific customers based on data that they give us access to at the time they apply for an account at Cabbage.
And JF, why don't you go next? Tell us a little bit about Element AI.
Yes, absolutely. JF Gagné, so I'm CEO, co-founder of Element AI. We're a Canadian company based out of Montreal. We have 5 offices around the world: London, Montreal, Toronto, Singapore, and Seoul in South Korea. We launched 2 years ago. We're now over 450 people. We're a product business, so we're about augmenting every business decision with our product, and right now focus on the financial and the supply chain industry. I've been in this field for 18 years. It's my 3rd company at 2 successful exits along the way. I was there when AI was not working, and now I'm still around when it's starting to work. So it's quite exciting.
Great. And Sarah-Jayne, I know you're coming at it from a slightly different perspective, so why don't you tell us?
Yeah, well, our company look at technology stories from a customer perspective, and we break down the hype, the hyperbole surrounding technologies. In particular, there's so much hype around AI, what it can do, what it's capable of, and there's also a great deal of confusion. So we look at it from a customer perspective, telling brand stories. We work with companies like IBM, Siemens, Huawei, Oracle, SAP, to explain the customer's perspectives and to ensure that they're actually communicating their product values in the right way.
I just want to get you guys to puncture some of that confusion that Sarah-Jayne just mentioned. AI, feels like 2017, 2018, there's been a lot of AI chat, helped perhaps or hindered by people like Elon Musk who say, you know, the robots are going to kill us. How scared should people be of AI? And when we talk about AI, when people talk about AI as it applies to business, what are they actually talking about? Jean-François, why don't you tell us practically what we should be thinking about when it comes to AI, and is it something to be scared of?
I think, so there's been a lot of progress on 2 sides. One is on the perception, and we've seen a lot of that in the news. Oh, AI can now understand images. AI can understand text. And there's been a lot of progress in these areas. At the end of the day, yes, there is self-learning and contained type problem. There are tasks that are easy to describe and confined. And we've seen a lot of progress around that, but it's just a perception layer. It doesn't drive any decision. And that's the second category, where you have, cognitive type tasks that are being taken by artificial intelligence. And by looking at a set of outcomes that we want, they'll try to make better decision over time, leveraging the perception layer that we've got. We're still very early in all of that progress. And just back to Elon's comment, I think he just probably wanted to raise everybody's awareness on the fact that this technology is very, very powerful and that it requires a different kind of governance than the traditional software that we've been using. It's learning by data examples, which means you need to curate what you're training this system for very carefully. Otherwise, you can get into tons of different situations that you don't want. And I think we're going to be chatting about some of these use cases during this panel.
Okay, so we're learning that AI is still in the early phases. It's still quite limited in what it's capable of doing. And yet, there's huge amounts of venture capital funding going into startups that are exploring AI. There are many, many businesses that are putting .ai at the end of their names, and we see a lot of that. So Rob, as someone who is kind of more practically exploring AI, why did Cabbage, a financial startup, take the decision to introduce this very theoretical and early stage technology into its businesses? What's the advantage for you?
Yeah, so look, financial services is a complicated space. I think the machines taking over issue is a little bit different in financial services. You worry about AI creating results that might be discriminatory, something that from a regulatory perspective, there's challenges. And so I think it's super exciting in one way because we can actually, thanks to AI, we'd be able to tailor a product very specifically to a customer, as opposed to actually treating huge, numbers of customers the same. We can actually tailor fit a solution to a specific customer. The problem is that the regulators want to understand how you came about that decision. They want to understand why that product is as good as any other product that's out there that's being offered to other people on non-discriminatory, on a non-discriminatory basis. And I think that's where the challenge comes in for companies like Cabbage, who would, love embracing these technologies, really believe in them, and believe they're the future. It's the struggle against regulation and the fact that regulation never keeps up with science.
They need to step up. Regulators need to use AI to watch AI.
I love that idea. Maybe you can tell us about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so you're talking about, we were talking backstage about, how you kind of monitor the decisions that AI is taking. The phrase is a black box, in that you don't understand how an AI has come to the calculation it's come to. And JF was talking about using AI to monitor AI, which seems like a sort of circle of doom to me, but perhaps you can persuade me.
No, I mean, there's been a lot of techniques that evolve. I mean, we've seen some very fancy generative adversarial network use cases. You've seen it.
Can you define what that means for us, for the non-AI specialists?
No, so
in the room?
it means that you're able to capture the style of an artist using models, but also you can train an artificial intelligence model using another model as feedback. So you get them to compete one against another. And without having to build two big data sets, you can use the one model to be the feedback loop for the other one. So they have competitive outcome. One is trying to fool and basically create fake images and try to get the other classifier to fail at it. And when it fails, it tells the other classifier. So then it can learn that, oh, that was a fake, actually. It was not a real image. So you can use this technique to build a lot of robustness. And there's actually a very tight link between building explainability, building these feedback loop using models, and building robustness and accuracy. So there's a natural economic advantage in building explainability because it will drive further accuracy for companies. So these tools should emerge. Now the regulator is a bit late into all of this. As the number of use cases that financial services firms are going to be able to address and the level of precision, and we're going to see the same thing in healthcare, we'll need to evolve how we're thinking about a rule. And in a rule, think for a self-driving car. How do you test that a new version of your fancy Tesla that just got upgraded over the air is actually a better driver than the one that you had before? How do you do regression testing? You'll need a simulation environment with competing agent that are trying to run into you and then see how you dodge like the other AIs that are adversarial. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about AI to watch AI.
Okay. So a lot of AI, policing AI could be the solution. Sarah-Jayne, I'm really interested, you work on behalf of a lot of tech companies. You must have seen AI rise up as an area of communications over the last year. For you, what are the sort of marketing and communication issues around AI? It's a difficult topic to explain to the layman. There's a lot of definitions under the broad umbrella of AI. So how do you meet that challenge?
Yeah, I think there's so many different ideas of what AI is from a customer perspective. Everything from, Alexa through to how does Netflix decide what movies I should be watching? How does this all happen? And, breaking it down in a way where you're writing about AI from a perspective of, this is how the algorithms work. This is how data is actually translated and used and then improved upon as time goes by. So it's about choices. It's about understanding that perception area, the customer perception of the value. How does it add value to me? But, there's also some amazing breakthroughs. I mean, SpaceTech, a company that I've been talking to recently in the field of mammograms and cancer detection, their ANNs, their artificial neural networks, are now able to detect with 98% accuracy abnormal cells in a mammogram, which is up from 54% with regular doctors due to tiredness, misunderstanding, misinterpretation, or lack of education in some respects.
How long do you think it will take before... So you're right, and there's a lot of interesting developments in medical and AI. DeepMind in the UK is a great example, doing very similar things around sort of detecting eye disease. But at the end of the day, as it stands, patients are not going to necessarily trust what they perceive to be decisions taken by faceless algorithms. So again, from a communications perspective, how do you build that trust with your average everyday consumer who may be confused by these technologies and still wants to essentially hear the messages from a human?
Yeah, I mean, I think the actual fact that there is so much success, it is such an enabler for the patients as well, to be able to say, well, this is technology that can actually make a huge difference to my life. Not just decide what channels I'm watching, but can actually detect something that, a normal doctor might miss. And it's getting better and better and better. I mean, SpaceTech are predicting that by the end of next year, they'll have 100% accuracy, which is phenomenal. So the value element is there. And telling the story in a way that isn't, there's so much technical data analytics broken down that really go over the heads of everyday people, patients. They just want to know, will this work for me? Will this tell me what I need to know so that I can get on with the business of recovering?
What's the work you guys see being done on the regulatory front? And, technology is always difficult to regulate for because it's, global immediat's thanks to the internet, but governments obviously don't work in that global way. So, across the various jurisdictions that you guys operate in, what's the work you see being done on the regulatory front? And do you see that as being positive? Do you think governments could do better? Rob, why don't I start with you?
On the regulatory front, at least to my knowledge in the U.S., they haven't even started touching much of what could be regulated around AI. We're dealing with data privacy and our version of PSD2, and what we're trying to do in terms of affecting regulation is to make sure that governments adopt principles rather than specific technology requirements, because technology requirements, by the time you get that re-regulated as technology evolves, it creates lots of issues. So, we are always out there espousing, principles-based regulation, and we understand why it's needed within my space, which is financial services. We appreciate that. We want to make sure that we always treat customers fairly, and in fact, the way our business runs today, we actually over-index often for groups that have been traditionally discriminated against, because the way we run our models and the way we think about our business is, incredibly blind to the customer. But that's sort of the approach we've taken in the U.S. so far.
And how would regulation help you if the U.S. was a little more ahead of the game?
How has regulation helped us?
Yeah, how would it help you if there was sort of...
I think regulation for us would at least give us the boundaries within which we're able to operate. Right now, we're dealing with a lot of antiquated regulations that could be arguably applied to anything we do, and we want to make sure that, in light of technology evolution, that regulation keeps pace so that we feel comfortable we can operate within a box that allows us to pursue innovation and technology and new opportunities for our customers.
And JF, what are your views on this?
Yeah, so some perspective. I've been pretty active in Canada and collaborating with the government.
And Canada's a real hub for AI, isn't it? A lot of the really key early figures of AI sort of taught in Canada or are from Canada. So it's a real, you guys sort of really originated that scene, didn't you?
Yeah, and then there's a lot of situation that people have had the luxury to think for, let's say, 1 more year or two more year than maybe other location in the world. So that really enabled us to start maybe thinking a little bit faster about some of these considerations. I'm also part of the high-level expert group of the European Commission on Artificial Intelligence, which is thinking holistically about what should be the European strategy, not just on regulation, but on innovation, investment, etc. So my read on it is that at least there's a good level of awareness now that you see, and then the level of understanding has been progressing tremendously well in the last 12 months. There's tremendous opportunity for innovation through sandbox environment that could be created, and governments are talking about it. But also a lot of progress on, the application of, for say, human rights in the digital world, or human rights in a world where we're surrounded with intelligent agent or not so intelligent agent that are behaving or acting on our behalf or, to the contrary. And I think that the maturity of the conversation has been progressing quite a big deal, and that's going to be important. Like, when is it that I'm getting manipulated? If I have an avatar that actually behaves like a human, but it's not, but it's tricking my brain into generating some emotion. If I'm not aware of that, it is done without me subscribing to it. That's not okay. But now, where's the line? Now, it's okay. We want that probably, but I need to be subscribing to this. So all of these rules, I think GDPR has made some progress in that direction, but we'll need to think, as AI is now creating so many new use cases, industry by industry, be careful. You don't want to prevent the innovation opportunity, but make sure that people are respected and that the rules that we have and the principle that we had are properly integrated to take into account the new emerging use cases that we have.
Great. Sarah-Jayne, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right in terms of the fact that people don't want to be hoodwinked by AI, especially when it does provoke emotions. I think that it's important for the public to understand what's happening with their information. What's it doing up in the cloud that generates this particular response? And that's still a mystery to so many people. But I guess at the end of the day, we all want to feel that our data is protected. We all want to feel that, we're not being invaded by this new technology, and I think that is one of the greatest fears. So yes, regulation, of course, is important, and it's coming, but I don't think we're anywhere near that yet in terms of reassurance.
With like 10 seconds each, what does the field of AI need in the next 12 months to sort of really progress? What would be super helpful to the field to happen? Is it better government regulation or more money coming into the industry? What does it need? JF, I'm going to start with you.
More AI talent, please. If you're not in the field, and you think this is cool, we need more people. There's a huge crush on talent access, and that's
Rob,
number one.
I'm going to cut you off.
I agree with talent, and I also believe that just more awareness and knowledge out there in general.
And Sarah-Jayne,
I think breaking down the hype, telling the story of AI in a way that the customer can really understand and get behind, because ultimately, if society isn't behind it, we're not going to move forward.
Right. hopefully ending on a positive note there. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. That was great. And thank you to the panelists.
Thank you.